and the industry supports each other. That's the amazing thing really about this industry is you can be in competition. You
Sure.
can be selling the same product and have a great relationship with your competitor, which is certainly not the norm, I think, in a lot of industries.
Hello, and welcome to the Elevator Careers Podcast, sponsored by the Allred Group. I am your host, Matt Allred. In this podcast, we talk to the people whose lives and careers are dedicated to the vertical transportation industry to inform and share lessons learned, building upon the foundation of those who have gone before to inspire the next generation of elevator careers. Today, our guest is T. Bruce MacKinnon, CEO of Elevator World magazine. T has been with Elevator World for 27 years, 3 years as the CEO. Elevator World is a family business that was started by T's grandpa, Bill Sturgeon, in 1953, this year being the 70th anniversary. Although he was initially hesitant to join the business, T fell in love with the elevator industry. He loves the people who make it all happen and finds his work very rewarding. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Matt, glad to be here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be able to talk to you again. It was good to meet you. I think it's been a couple of years. I'm trying to remember which conference, one of the NEC conferences. I think it was Florida, if I'm not mistaken. Sarasota.
Yep, I think that was when we got kind of more officially connected, and that was one of the first events after COVID. So
yeah. I think my first event was the one I think before that in Tucson, and it was actually one of my clients that said, "Hey, why don't you come to this?" And I was a little hesitant at first because I just feeling like a little bit of an outsider. He said, "Shut up, you're not an outsider. Get down here." So I came and had a great time and was really impressed with the way I was received by the elevator industry, the community, the people that were there, not knowing what to expect. And so was excited to get back to another one. And that's when we met. So
yeah, absolutely. The industry is really full of great people, I think very open to new people coming in the industry. And I think there's a great need to try to even attract more,
Sure.
more people in the industry. I don't know why it seems like it's a secret industry. I tell people this all the time. It's like a secret industry. Nobody thinks about elevators. Everyday citizens just get in the elevator, push the button. They don't really think about what's behind the facade. But it's a great industry, great opportunity in it.
Yeah. Well, and I find that all the time when I tell people that I recruit, specialize in elevators. They're like, "What is that a thing? How does that even work?" But
Right.
something that most of us take for granted until you get to know a little bit more about it. So, so how did you first get exposed to elevator industry?
Well, I mean, I kind of feel like I've been in the industry my whole life. My family started Elevator World in 1953. My grandfather on my mother's side, and so I was around it, my whole life, cutting grass, at Elevator World and stuff like that. But I really wasn't interested in getting involved in the business at all. So I was quite reluctant and never really fully understood what they were doing. So like a lot of people, when I tell people that I own a company called Elevator World, they're usually confused. So
Right. Tell me a little bit about how your family, your grandfather, Bill Sturgeon, started Elevator World. What kind of brought that about? How did he?
yeah, so he started Elevator World in 1953. We're 70 years old this year, and he came out of the military, World War II, and got married to my grandmother, his wife, and her side of the family owned a small elevator company here in Mobile, Alabama, called Mobile Elevator. It was just a small maintenance company, and they maintained elevators on the port, on the dock that we have,
Okay.
docks that we have here. And so he went to work, didn't have a job, and went to work there and learned the business. And he kind of had a communication background in the military and worked in that side of things. And and as time kind of went on, I think he began to realize that the industry was really fragmented, that it was difficult to connect with people and learn. And so he was an integral part of setting up and establishing a lot of the groups within the industry, associations and small groups, and ultimately started Elevator World about I guess maybe 6 or 7 years after working in the industry, and then ultimately he sold inherited the company and sold Mobile Elevator, I think to Montgomery Elevator at that
Okay.
time, and then Elevator World has continued on.
That's interesting. I mean, and I can just kind of imagine in my mind the fragmented nature. If you're working on the ports on those elevators, well, then maybe you don't have any interaction with the elevator people in doing the high rises or even. And I see a little bit of that between seemingly the commercial side, the residential side, or just different. It's like, hey, you're in a different world. You don't do what we do, so no need to talk to you. But it sounds like he was able to obviously create this. The magazine itself is a way to communicate, but also, like you say, a lot of the associations and just getting people together, I guess.
Yeah, some of of course we've got a huge archives, and we know the story well, but some of the early meetings were just 5 or 10 guys in a hotel suite, meeting to talk about their problems and challenges wherever they might have been located, and I think he found that helpful, and others did as well. And so those different groups started and found their purpose and needs, and NAC being the National Association of Elevator Contractors is really the largest largest association, and the main one that he really was involved with. But he was involved with global global associations. He was a friend to the industry, and he really gave to the industry, and I think that's really the mindset that he had, was to serve the industry through the publication, through helping establish these associations, and he even with other publications in other parts of the world, he would work closely with them, and they would trade content and support each other. So
That's great. He sounds like a real visionary when it comes to bringing the different people to the table, and I think you can see a lot of that now. I mean, you and I had talked about the way we met at an NAEC conference, or the way that those get together, and the fact that people come into the industry and stay for forever. I remember talking to a guy not too long ago who'd been at it 50 plus years, and asking him, hey, do you think you'll retire? No, I just all my friends are here. This is my family, and it seems like it gets that way for a lot of people.
it does. I'm sure there's other industries that there's some similarities, but I've never experienced it quite with other industries that I've worked in. I've never experienced anything like it. People just don't leave. They may, like I say, they may jump to another company, or they may start it. They may start their own company,
Sure.
but they stick around, and the industry supports each other. That's the amazing thing really about this industry is you can be in competition, you
Sure.
can be selling the same product, and have a great relationship with your competitor, which is certainly not the norm, I think, in a lot of industries.
No, it's a little unheard of. Certainly in industries I've worked in the past, culturally, the competition was just the enemy. That was kind of the way they spoke about them. But yeah, I've not seen the kind of camaraderie and just the way that people come together and respect each other. Whether they're competing or not. There's a unique culture, and I think it certainly has captured me, and that's part of the reason I love having these conversations, is just finding different perspectives. So I'm curious, you mentioned growing up, cutting the grass, and hey, I'm aware of this thing called Elevator World, but zero interest. What was it that kind of changed that for you?
Well, I had worked in some other industries. I'd worked for my father early in my career, and that was a very challenging time in my life. We didn't work together very well, so I was very hesitant in getting back into the family side of business, and so I was worried. So it just really did once I had left working for my father and gone into another business, it just didn't really cross my mind. But it wasn't until my grandfather was seriously looking at retiring, and that my mother was going to be left running the company really without him there. And I'm the only child that, they wanted to talk to me about it and wanted me to consider it. And I was working in the restaurant business and was probably going to have to move away from Mobile, where I had lived my whole life. My wife, her family's here, and
Sure.
she didn't want to move as well. So, that conversation just happened, and so I started thinking more about it, and would come to Elevator World and kind of meet the people here and look at what where I could contribute and be involved, and I actually bought into the company. So I just didn't just walk in and take over. I bought ownership into the company, and worked from the bottom up, and learned the business, learned publishing. I had a marketing degree, but
Sure.
I didn't know anything about elevators, and I'm still not an elevator expert. I'm not QEI. I'm not an elevator inspector. And I recently gave a presentation that said, I joked around and said, sometimes I identify as an elevator mechanic, but I'm not one.
There you go. So
But
what was kind of your first foray, once they finally convinced you to join, what was your first job? What did you do?
Yeah, really mainly just kind of learning from the people that were here,
Mhm.
learning about how we manage content, how we deliver the magazine. Obviously, that was 27 years ago. A lot of things have changed since then.
Sure.
We still produce print publications. Obviously, we've got lots of digital properties that support those print publications. But just learning those processes, and learning how how we deliver the magazine, and meeting deadlines. That's the other thing too. In an industry, in the publishing industry, you just got a huge amount of deadlines on to put out a product, and of course going to events, and setting up, and meeting people in the industry, all those type of things.
Yeah. No, there's a lot to it, and I'm curious, how has technology changed the way you talked about digital assets? You probably didn't have a whole lot of that 27 years ago. I mean, I we're probably not too far apart in age, and I didn't really have a computer or even access to one until I think I went to college. I mean, there was a little lab at high school, right? But college is the first time I touched email, and so I'm curious how that has affected your business.
Well, it's interesting because my grandfather, he retired when he was 85, which was probably about 20 years ago, 20 or maybe 25 years ago, and he had never used a computer.
Wow.
Uh, and we were using some type of computer at that time 25 years ago, but he had never used a computer. And so when he went home and retired, about 6 months later, he said, I want a computer. And so he spent another 10 years living and
Oh,
writing books.
nice.
So that was kind of interesting, that he, always was pushing himself to, learn new technology, and all that. But yeah, 27 years ago, we had one regular publication, Elevator World, which we like to call our global publication.
Mhm.
And we had an annual directory. Actually, an annual issue is what we called it, and it was an issue that was really kind of focused on a region of the world. And when he retired, we basically turned that into an annual directory. But now we have 6 publications covering very specific regions of the world: India, Turkey, Middle East, the UK, Europe. And so we have those publications. Obviously, we have digital editions of them on our website. We have
Sure.
all of the content in those publications are available on our website in HTML format. We also produce about 10 monthly email newsletters, and then of course social things, and all of that.
So 6, I think you said international. Is that based on kind of continent region like Europe and Southeast Asia? And um,
Yeah, a lot of it has been, relationships allowed us to be able to establish publications. Also, there are no publications in the U.S. other than Elevator World, U.S. and Canada. There are other publications in other parts of the world. So there's an Italian publication and a
okay.
couple of German publications. And so we've bought some publications and then rebranded them. We've launched publications in regions where there weren't where there wasn't a publication. Our first kind of launch was India, Elevator World
Okay.
India, about 15 years ago.
Cool.
So really, when I got involved and really started, doing a lot of the international travel, carrying that load, so my mother really didn't have to do that. I really, built a lot of relationships around the world, and saw opportunity to truly make ourselves global and cover content related to those market specific and specific publications.
Right. So do you have, I assume you have offices and printing operations and all of that in those locations, right?
Yeah, some of that's changed over the years, but we have three main offices. Our corporate office is in Mobile, Alabama, in the U.S. We've been in the location we're at for 50 years. And then we have an office in Istanbul, which is really strategically located to be able to really serve a large part of Eurasia and really, I mean, just anything on that side of the pond. And then we also have a partnership and an office in Bangalore, India, that handles our Indian publication and some other details in that area. So that helps us a lot. We've changed the way, we've changed where we print, where we mail. It's all obviously based on cost and logistics. So it's changed over the years. We're currently we still print our core publication, Elevator World, in the U.S. And mail in the U.S., but we print our international subscribers and copies in Istanbul,
Sure.
and we mail from that region.
Cool. Did you end up traveling a lot yourself? I mean, it sounds like you did, especially at the beginning of starting these publications.
Yeah, I've done a lot of travel over 27 years. I mean, that's really been a great experience for me. I mean, people hear places you go and they think, oh, that sounds so wonderful that you got to go there. Travel's work. Anybody that has traveled know that traveling is work and is challenging. And I contribute my experience in the restaurant business to have helped me be able to deal with international travel, because if you've ever worked in the restaurant business, that you're going to work long hours, and people aren't going to show up, and you're going to have to work hard at times.
Sure.
And so I think it kind of prepped me for international travel and being able to fly 7, 8, 10 hours and then get there and go right to work,
Right.
and try to be as fresh as possible. But I've seen the world. I've been to a lot of interesting places, and I still like to travel. I'm doing actually a lot more travel these days. I didn't do very much U.S. travel, except mainly the main event like NAAC. But I'm doing a lot more of the smaller events in the U.S. So yeah, my travel schedule is still going strong.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, it sounds like it's certainly work, but you're up to the challenge and making it happen. And it's great that you can provide the service here, as throughout the U.S. or throughout the world rather, and really bring the whole community together. What would you say is one of the greatest benefits of making those connections and having that communication worldwide?
Well, I think, anybody you talk to in business today knows that, relationships are key to success in a business. You've got to make the right connections. You've got to be sincere. You got to be honest. You got to be humble. And so I think, depending on what your business is and what you're doing, it makes a difference. Those attributes are important. Obviously, we're not, obviously we're selling a product. We're selling, subscriptions and selling advertising and those type of things. But we're also doing a service for the
Sure.
industry. We're recording. My grandfather, once said, we're recording the history of this great industry, and
Yeah.
nobody else is really doing that. We have more content about this industry than anybody in the world, and I don't know if that matters. I mean, it's the elevator industry. It doesn't matter. It's not like some social media channel or whatever that has all this content, but for our industry, it's important. It's important
Yeah.
that we record, the achievements that are happening and the projects. And so, yeah, I think relationships matter. And I also find the elevator people are the same no matter where you go.
Really?
Doesn't matter if you go to Italy or to Israel or or Saudi Arabia. The elevator people are the same all over the world. They love the industry, they love the product, and they're good people. They're honest. They're hardworking people, and you gotta love that. You gotta appreciate that.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's good to know it's the same worldwide. I mean, I've definitely found, just hardworking, love what I do, want to keep doing it, is really the attitude of just so many good people. What would you say you've come to love the most, having been at it 27 years now?
Well, yeah, going back to the people, really. I mean, people are the key in any business. So, making those relationships and friendships, playing golf, and getting to reconnect at conventions. That's a great part. Traveling, traveling's been a great experience, meeting people of different cultures and having those, kind of having those taboo conversations. They always say, when you travel, when you go to different parts of the world, you don't talk about politics, you don't talk about religion. But the fact of the matter is, those are the two things that always end up coming up, particularly when there are dramatic differences.
Sure.
So I've found that people are the same all across the world. I used to think my grandfather was kind of a strange guy because he was always studying the world religions and all these things that I was like, well, why are you doing that? And it was because he had experienced people,
Sure.
with such diverse backgrounds, that he wanted to have some connection and understand them. And people are the same all over the world. Doesn't matter if you're a Muslim or Hindu or a Christian, whatever it is. You're a product of how you were raised. So,
Sure.
if you're raised in a good environment, you're a good guy. Raised in a bad environment, you're probably a bad guy. And so, but people are the same all over the world. And that's been a great experience for me, making friends of different backgrounds.
Yeah, yeah, and just being able to connect. I mean, it sounds like his passion was, I want to learn something about what you value, so I can at least appreciate where you're coming from, so we can have a richer conversation, because I know a little bit more about, why you feel the way you do, or what your understanding is. So
Absolutely, yeah.
that's very cool, very cool. So as you look at the industry, overall, obviously you're kind of in a unique niche. I mean, a lot of the people I talk to are in the field, or they're running a business, or they're doing sales, or what would you say is key to success in the elevator industry?
Well, I mean, for elevator world, I think the key to success is, being very thorough and covering the industry, being fair in what we're doing, being independent. My grandfather didn't establish Elevator World to be an association publication. He could have done that, but I
Mm-hmm.
think he felt like that would have tied the publication to one entity, and
Sure.
he wanted it to be independent. He wanted to be able to cover the entire globe, from all over the world, from from the largest OEMs to the smallest independent guy. And so I think that makes us, unique in some way in what we do. But I think in general, to be successful in the elevator industry, I mean, if you look at the people in the elevator industry who are successful, independent, maintenance guys, those guys are hardworking. They have great personalities. They probably have some sales capabilities. That's probably the same traits you see almost in any type of business. You gotta be able to sell yourself. You got to be able to be approachable and personable. But the other part of the industry, I think you got to understand the product. You got to
Sure.
have, that's always been the biggest challenge for me. I'm not an engineer. I'm a pretty mechanical guy, but I've never really worked on the elevator itself. I've toured a lot of them and been on the car tops and all that. But and I understand, door lock monitoring and all these things that are going on in the industry, based on presentations,
Sure.
but I've never done it. And so that's always an obstacle that I struggle with a little bit. So you got to know the product, you got to know the benefits of the product, and you got to be personable.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and as I've talked to a lot of people, one of the themes that comes up a lot is nobody knows everything, right? Even the guy that's been at it 70 years is, he doesn't know everything. And for, um, it's, and I think that's part of what contributes to the community overall is just talking to people that, will call a buddy, call somebody they trust, call somebody they know and say, hey, I'm looking at X, Y, and Z. And have you ever seen one of these? Can you help me through this? And that has always been, honestly, it blew me away when I first learned that, a mechanic, for example, can call somebody that he knew 20 years ago and he'll help them walk through a problem. That just is so foreign to so many other industries and businesses that I've touched before. So, maybe that's part of it too, is just knowing that, we can't do it. Any one person can't know all the answers. And so you've got to rely on each other.
Well, absolutely. And there's a lot of different, I mean, there's a lot of legacy products out there. There's a lot of different type of products out there. You're not talking about plumbing, or
Sure.
electricity. Much of that has not changed, over a long period of time. But, in the elevator industry, equipment has changed dramatically, but
Sure.
some of that legacy equipment is still out there. But there may not be someone that's directly connected to your company, that knows how to fix this problem or deal with this. So yeah, you've got to have those connections to figure out some of these things. So those are great stories that you hear about when you talk to guys in the industry. I talked to a guy literally last week about he has a breakfast or something once a month with an older gentleman who has retired from the industry, but literally got him into the industry.
Wow.
And they still stay connected, every month over a breakfast or something, and have these great stories. And I think that we're gonna, he's actually gonna do an interview for us so we can kind of write something up about that relationship.
Very cool. Very cool. So we're getting, I guess, close to our end, our time, but is there anything in particular that you'd want to bring up as we close?
I mean, I'll just say that, I'm so grateful for, this industry and the support that it has, given Elevator World over 70 years. I always, when I talk to people, I joke a lot. They say that the first generation makes it, second generation takes it, third generation breaks it. I'm the third generation. And so, I'm trying real hard not to mess Elevator World up, and to keep it, professional, and providing good content and supporting those in this industry. And so, with that, I'm very thankful for the support that we have had, over 70 years, which is, really, really quite remarkable.
So T, you've talked a little bit about how the industry has supported Elevator World and being grateful for that. And I just want to thank you for Elevator World's support of the industry, and in particular want to share a little bit of my story. And that is I was I've been recruiting for, I think, about 15 years old overall, and about 13 of those in the elevator industry. But at first it was kind of half and half. I was doing some manufacturing and I was doing some elevator, and so for several years, worked with Kone, did a little bit of work with Thyssen, and then I think it was around 2020, a friend of mine who's a marketing PR guy, he says to me, hey, I want to help you with your marketing. And I'm like, I don't even know a thing about marketing. I don't even know what you're talking about, Mike. And he said, well, let me talk to some of your customers and I'll get back to you. And I said, great, do it. So gave him some of my elevator contacts, and he made a few phone calls, and he comes back to me in just a few days. And he's like, you need to advertise in Elevator World. I'm like, why? I mean, I'm familiar with it, but I'm like, why? He's like, well, that's it. It's the hub. It's where you need to be. It's, if you want to build your business, that's going to build visibility. It's going to build credibility, and you can do it affordably, even with a fairly small ad. And I said, well, Mike, you're the expert. I'm willing to do it. And so, he's the one that arranged to have the ad put in and everything. And maybe he even designed it, but put it in there. And very quickly, I was getting some phone calls, not a ton, but just, hey, I saw your ad in Elevator World. Can you help me out? And really from there, I think it's helped in a lot of ways, but through COVID, through, the selling and of some of my clients kind of losing that business, but being able to find new business. So again, I just want to thank you for being there as a resource, because I know you've helped me and my business, and especially through some of the rocky times.
Hey, that's good stuff. Good stuff, Matt. Yeah, we're happy to hear a great story like that, and we hear a lot of them. And again, that's really that's our mission, is to support the industry in any way we can. So I'm glad to hear that you've had success.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Is there any words of wisdom you'd like to share with our listeners before we wrap up?
Um, Hey, recruit more people into this industry, because we need people everywhere I go, no matter where you are in the world. That's all I hear is, we need more hardworking young people to get into the industry. I'm trying to get my son into the industry. I think it's great. It's a great pay. It's a good lifestyle. It's a safe industry. There are obviously accidents that happen on the equipment, but as a whole, the industry is really a safe industry that can provide a good lifestyle. And so
Sure.
we need, and I know that's what you're doing. You're helping businesses find those people, and that's great. I think that you probably got a good business, because there's a great need for it.
Yeah. There's always needing, good talent. And you're right. I hear it all the time that, we need to get the word out, get people to recognize what a gem it is, so that we have enough people to get the work done. Cause there's a lot of work to do. And I do find that as people dig in, learn their job, it's kind of like job security. If you know your stuff, you know how to deliver, then you're always going to have opportunities.
Yeah, absolutely. I just recently read an article where it's talking about how AI will affect certain industries, and obviously I've got to pay attention to that, because publishing is one of those things that they say that it's going to take over journalism or whatever. I don't think it will, but I think it'll certainly support it. But
Sure.
one of the things it said it won't take over is, it won't take over blue collar labor
Sure.
related industries. Those things are going to stay strong. And really, to be honest with you, those industries are great industries, and great income. There's a lot of satisfaction working with your hands.
Right.
And it's unfortunate that we've got such a large portion of this younger generation that's not that interested in working with their hands. They've been raised on computers and raised on social media. But tinkering with things and working on things there's a lot of satisfaction in it. And so hopefully more people will learn that and get in the industry.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, T, thank you for your time. I've enjoyed it. Appreciate, the conversation and all your insights and wisdom, and wish you the best as you keep building your business.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed it as well, Matt.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to the Elevator Careers podcast, sponsored by the Allred Group, a leader in elevator industry recruiting. You can check us out online at elevatorcareers.net. Please subscribe, and until next time, stay safe.